Dr. Betsy Holmberg is an award-winning psychologist specializing in negative self-talk and overthinking. She earned her PhD in psychology from Duke University, where she also graduated Phi Beta Kappa. At Harvard University, she conducted and published research on self-injury and suicide. She later led the global behavioral health service line at McKinsey and Company, where she ranked in the top 5% of all consultants. Dr. Holmberg's work focuses on the default mode network, the DMN, an automatic thought generator responsible for insecurities, fears, and worries. She aims to help individuals understand this network to alleviate negative self-talk and promote well-being. That sounds very complicated, but Dr. Betsy will make this into sort of rational thought that I can understand, and hopefully you can as well. Betsy's book, Unkind Mind, will be out soon, and it promises to shine a light on where your hypercritical inner voice comes from, something we'll be digging into as we talk. Wow, I'm not sure I've had a guest that has Duke, Harvard, McKinsey on their CV. I'm a little bit overwhelmed. So the questions will be far, far less impressive than the answers. So forgive me for some of the questions. But I did want to take you back just a little bit and understand your formative years, your teenage years. Where did your values come from? And can you link where you are today to the person you were then?
What an interesting question. So to go back into childhood and teenage years, I was a very driven kid. I felt like, so I loved history. I loved being steeped, and this will sound very naive, but I was a kid, so take it with a grain of salt. I loved historic buildings. I loved imagining everything that had gone on in those buildings. And so I walked onto Harvard's campus and I said, I need this. Like, this is where I want to be. I want to be steeped around all this knowledge. I want to be with all this history, one of the first universities in the country. Sign me up. And so I worked my butt off through my entire high school years to try to get into Harvard. And I applied early admission and I got waitlisted. And I was so upset and I was so frustrated. And I had such an interesting teenage perspective. I was like, if they didn't want me now, I don't want them. Because they said, do you want to just now being part of the regular pool? And I was like, no, you reject me, I reject you back. And so I took myself off the list. But that drive kind of stayed with me of, wanting to excel, wanting to do my best. And so then I got out into the working world. I then felt that my new shiny nugget, once I saw the corporate world, I was in law for a while as a legal assistant. I was like, this isn't great. And so I was like, I need a PhD. I want a PhD. How cool, right? You get to go study all day long. You get to be super expert in something. And so I went to Harvard as a stepping stone to get to a clinical psychology program because they're very hard to get into. And I then am into my PhD and I'm starting to see clients and I'm in my 20s and I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this. I loved the research. I loved the writing. I loved all that piece of it. But I was like, I don't want to be a professor. I don't want to be a therapist. What do I do now? And so that was another one of those shiny things that didn't quite turn out the way I thought. So I thought I'll go into business and who does fun, interesting, cool problems? Consultants do. I was like, this will be cool. So McKinsey became my shiny object. And so I went to McKinsey, did some amazing studies, met some amazing people. It was wonderful. But I also got wildly burned out. My body is one that needs 9 hours of sleep. I need a house, or an apartment. I just need to have a home. I need a dog. That's just who I am. And so as fun as the problems were, I could not do the lifestyle. And so yet another shiny object went kapoom in my face. And I thought, what is wrong with me? And so my internal negative inner critic has been going forever. And it started to question my judgment. You keep on going for this stuff and yet it never works out. It's never right. And so then I wait till 35 years old to get married. And I thought, okay, I've waited because, you're not supposed to get divorced. If the older you are when you get married, the less likely you are to get divorced. The more education you have, the less likely you are to be divorced. Obviously, guys, I spend a lot of time reading research articles, which is not exactly the most normal. So it's okay, I've checked. I've done the marriage thing right. I've waited. I've found someone who has a lot of similarities. We've become who we're going to be in our lives. So this is solid. So I get married at 35. And 2 years after, almost to the day that we got married, he was like, I can't do this anymore. I want out. And I had a 15-month-old child. And so I had shifted my life to be a mom, and I had this baby, and I thought we were a unit, and like this was going to be safe. Like, here we go. And it's just my whole world got wrecked. And it was like that, and the next thing of, okay, you had this thing you thought was going to be one thing, and it completely failed. And it really sent me for a loop. And my negative self-talk got really hard during that time. And that was the start of writing the book.
Wow. I should have poured a stiff drink before we. I don't actually know. I should have maybe gone back to a stiff drink. Wow.
But I wonder how many other kids do that same thing. There's other, where you have this thing that you're like, this is the thing that's going to be the thing that opens up my life, and it's going to make my life better. And then the reality of it is just not what you have in your head,
It's funny. I can absolutely empathize with that. I think when I was young, I went for this particular training program, and I think only something like 2% of people got through it on the first round. And they said to me, "Okay, we want to give you a sort of 6-month referral, and you can sort of start in 6 months' time." And at the time, I was exactly the same as you. So, well, if they don't want me now, they can't have me then. No, they don't, it's now or never, and it was never. And and it's sliding doors, isn't it? Who knows? My life works out wonderfully well, and who knows what would happen at the time. But it's almost that thing. Well, no, you don't understand. I've been working towards this for so long, missing all of these supposedly cool things, parties and relationships, whatever. And now you're telling me to wait another 6 months. No, that's just not happening. And then, when suddenly that thing that's been the shining orb that's you've always followed is sort of gone. Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? You do look for another shining orb, and whether that's a relationship or it's a marriage or it's another job, whatever, it just becomes quite hard. So was your general thought process throughout the different activities you tried and clinical work and research work and McKinsey and then the marriage, was it always I've done something wrong? Was that the thought, or I haven't done something as well as I should have been doing something?
It was, I feel like my judgment's off. Like I'm picking the wrong things for myself. Like I don't know myself well enough that I thought I could do McKinsey, but I couldn't do that lifestyle. So I had a lot of self-doubt about my own decision-making processes. And as I was in each of those steps, I 100% felt like, well, other people are able to do this. Why can't I? Other people seem to be just fine. Why am I struggling? And we talked openly, but there was a place where we also didn't all talk super openly. And so I did have in every single one of those moments, like, what's wrong with me that I can't make this work? And so that was a theme until, 40 years old of like, make it work, like find the thing, make it work and find your little place in it. And that has been the huge thing I've had to shift ever since this divorce is like, some things don't work and I'm okay despite it. And I'm not going to try to find any more shiny things. No more shiny things for me. I'm done.
It's interesting when you said about people that a little bit older, less likely to get divorced, higher education. So you did all the sort of research and evaluation. And is that a common theme that, for want of a better word, you tend to overthink things?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
It takes an overthinker to write a book on overthinking. If you're not an overthinker, you don't need to do the research. I mean, it's the whole, like all psychology research is me search. I mean, we're all trying to understand ourselves. And so this book was 100% my way of understanding myself. And what happened is it was so profound to me, and it was such a shift from everything that I had learned in psychology and where the world is currently and how we think about mindset and stuff, that I went from my introverted self that didn't want any more shiny things to I got to write a book. And it's interesting this time around, though, because I don't feel the same, like I'm running this the way I want to run this. Like I'm not really on social media. I don't like it. I don't know why, but it makes me uncomfortable to put everything out there like that. And so, but I'm happy to do a podcast. This is absolute fun. So it's like I'm not forcing myself into any boxes anymore with it.
And how did you find the process of writing the book? Was it quite cathartic? Was it quite difficult? Did it take you to places you didn't expect to? I mean, I think we chatted very briefly before we started about your PhD dissertation. So the fact you enjoy the writing of stuff, but when it's writing, like I say, almost you've got to really dig into yourself to get the best answers out. How did you find the overall time writing
It
the book?
took 4 years. It took so long. So I originally got all the research and then I wrote a book. It wasn't a great one though. And so I went through this process. I'm not going to bore everyone here where it was, potentially getting it published and it fell through. And so then New Harbinger actually came to me and was like, we love your writing in Psychology Today. We love this topic. Will you write a book? And so bizarrely, this book came about completely organically without me trying to make something happen. And so then I literally rewrote the entire book to be what that needed. And the writing process is fine for me. I don't know why, but I don't feel connected to my writing at all. I look at it very critically, probably because I look at myself very critically too. Yay, overthinking. And so I'm able to put just stuff down and then I can go back and rewrite it and I don't feel too connected to any piece of it. And maybe that's what makes it a little easier. But doing a post on social media would be the hardest thing in the world for me. I couldn't do it.
And the book comes out at the end of July?
June 1st.
June, okay. Oh, I got a pre-order on Amazon. It says released on the 31st of July. Oh, I should cancel it and find somewhere else then.
Maybe that's UK.
That's
maybe
UK
it's
version.
different in different markets.
Okay. So you're going to have to do a lot of publicity around it and get yourself out there and
but this is the fun stuff because this topic is crazy. When we start talking about it, it's so much fun to talk about because it shifts everything so much that I'm finding the publicity so easy because it's just fun to chat.
So you've done a huge amount of research into the default mode network. So can you explain what this is and why you think understanding it is so important?
All right. So we all have that experience of our thoughts as being coming from us, and it all comes from one place. And so the same thing that's talking to you about those self-critical thoughts is the same place that you're using to build a presentation or create talking points or whatever. Mm-hmm. And what the neuroscience shows is that we actually have two distinct thought networks. So we'll start with our best one, which is the central executive network. This sits on the very periphery of the brain, on the very outside, which means evolutionarily it was the last one to come online. So our brain had some exponential growth in our development. And so this was the last thing we developed. And it's awesome. It is when you choose your thoughts. When you're thinking about something, if you're focused on me talking, you're using your central executive network. Now, the crazy thing they found is that deeper in the brain, embedded closer, so it means evolutionarily goes back further, is the default mode network. And this is completely different. It's automatic. It just runs. And it sits like it's like a switch. So it's either you're focusing your thoughts or this thing is running. And because it was in our hunter-gatherer days, it served a very, very important purpose in our evolution. So this is when we were starting to build clans. And so this network looks around at all the clan norms, looks what everyone else is doing, their roles, and it's like it tries to keep you safe by saying, well, you need to do what that person's doing, or that person is better than you doing this. And it's constantly trying to make you stay in the clan or stay somehow valuable to the clan. So it is directed outside in. Your central executive is inside out, and it spirals. It just runs. And so this is the thing that shocked me was, wait, I'm not the one coming up with these thoughts. So if I feel really sad, or if, let's say, I'm feeling like, I now have a scarlet letter on me because my husband left me, everyone's going to think I'm damaged goods. Like, all of those thoughts would be like, okay, that you have low self-esteem, you have depression, you have this. And this was like, oh, wait, no, this is just my default mode network seeing that a divorced person looks different from the clan of all these happily married people with their kids. And therefore, it is flagging it as an issue. And so when I could separate from it and not own those thoughts and not believe those thoughts, I felt so much lighter and freer and better. And I was like, shit, everyone needs to know this. like not just me. This is huge.
So you can, in a way, train yourself to understand and interpret the thoughts differently.
You can recognize when this thing is running and then say, oh, that's my default mode. Got it. Some people name it. Some people
Okay.
turn it into a little man with a little loincloth on. I mean, people do all sorts of things, but it's to recognize when it's running so that you then can dismiss it. It's very different because in our therapy, we all talk about, oh, tell us how you're feeling, tell us what you're thinking. And it's like, okay, well, let's pressure test it. Is that true? Should we really believe that? And this is way more clear cut. It's way more like, no, don't listen to it. Dismiss it. It is not meant to function in our world. We've evolutionarily moved past this thing. We don't so don't listen to it harping on you because, your family might have said you have to be a lawyer. And if you're not a lawyer, then you're not going to be good enough. And so you have that, your DMN picked that up and was like, you're not a lawyer. What are you doing? And you can say, no, that's just my DMN. It's playing off of old clan norms and I don't have to listen to it anymore.
So, and I'm not meaning to group these things together when I ask the next question. But so people that perhaps have autism, neurodivergent, or sociopaths. That's why I'm saying I'm not grouping them together. Just three things that are. Does it work differently in people that see things or view things differently against the common norm?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And the literature hasn't gone there as much. They've only have about 10 years that we've really been playing with what this network is. So where they've really focused their time is major depressive disorder, the DMN is very strong. And you can literally see it. Major anxiety disorders, the classic ones, that's also characteristic of a very strong DMN. And a weaker central executive network because they truly are either or. And so they haven't done as great a job looking into that piece. One thing I think is interesting is if you look at narcissistic personality disorder, that almost seems, and this is completely my conjecture, so know that, guys, but that feels like it's a flipping of the DMN. So typically the DMN is outward facing, looking at you and telling you everything you did wrong. And narcissism feels like a DMN that is looking outward and telling the world what it did wrong. You know what I mean? Like,
No,
you're to blame for this,
100%.
and you're this. And it's like, it just sounds like a flipped DMN, how that develops, everything. I would love to go into the research of it, but it feels like that's a piece there.
And there are people that we can all think of, I'm sure, and people that are in the public eye at the moment, really, that you've never ever seen anybody as bombastic or refusing to believe, no matter if 9,000 people say they did something wrong. No, that's not wrong. No, you're all wrong. No, it's society that's wrong. No, I'm absolutely right. And I think sometimes to have that level of confidence must be extraordinary, but I'm not sure it's that healthy.
But it also sounds like a perverse DMN, doesn't it? It sounds automatic. Yeah, and it's like, and you're like, why are you incapable of taking any responsibility of something that's literally right in front of you? And you still are like, nope, I can't do it. And you're like, that feels like the DMN's off somehow.
So you did research at Harvard onto self-injury and suicide influences. And how did that come across in the work on the DMN?
It was a helpful building block because the big thing we discovered with those teenagers is that if they got into a state where they felt overwhelmed, their thoughts were racing, the emotions were high, when they self-injured, it narrowed their focus to the injury. And they're like, I finally felt peace. And so that was one of our big findings to come out, is like that this is a bizarrely adaptive behavior. It's a coping mechanism. It's a way to calm really intense states. And so then to get into this literature, you're like, oh, I actually see it, and they have it in the literature as well, is that self-harm switches people from their DMN to their CEN. They focus on the cut, just the word focus, you're like, bing, there it is. And all the thoughts went away. they have moved from one network to the other. And so humans have come up with a lot of ways to do this without knowing what the DMN is. Another one we use is alcohol. So when you have a drink and then suddenly you feel less self-conscious, you feel like you can be more present, it's that turning off of the DMN. Cigarettes turn off the DMN and actually activate the CEN so that you get that better focus and you can work harder. So all of these things that people use, exercise can comment, like we've been using it without knowing why. The big one that is everyone touts as the best health thing in the world is meditation. And meditation, they've done tons of neuroimaging studies on this, and it quiets, and you just hear it actually in the way they say it. They're like, don't listen to your thoughts, let your thoughts just go by, aka ignore your DMN. Right? And then they're like, focus on your breath, focus on a chant, something like that. AKA use your CEN to focus on your breath. So the whole way that meditation works is just moving us from our DMNs to our CENs. And yet it has profound health benefits because unlike alcohol, unlike self-harm, it doesn't have any negative consequences. There's nothing else in the way. And so that's how meditation works. And so you see, we've been playing with this without knowing what it is.
So are you a big advocate of breathwork and meditation?
No, I don't like meditation. And honestly, this was one of the things that helped me recognize, okay, I don't have to meditate. Anything that I do that can focus my attention. So for me, I can be very still when I'm out in nature. Yes. That's very easy for me. So I choose to do that. I actually really love guided meditations. So I'll do that. And so it has opened it up so that I can do what more resonates with me, as opposed to having to follow some prescription of like, I have to meditate for 15 minutes a day for well-being. Like, no, I can do it the way I want to.
Which I think is such a good thing for people to hear, because sometimes I feel so similar in terms of I can go outside in nature, whether it's by water or by trees or whatever, and feel completely calm almost immediately. And if I try and do a 10, 5, 15 minute meditation where I'm just sat there, I'm fine being on my own, I'm fine in my own company, but sitting there in complete silence, just trying to push all these thoughts away, just felt and feels so, not so difficult, just it's something that, okay, I can't do that, so something else I failed at. Which is the opposite to what you want to feel. You almost, I agree with you. I think there's ways of calming it. But I do, it's interesting about the drinking, smoking, drugs, self-harm, all the things that we do to get our mind focused. And I don't know whether I'll leave this in the edit, but so I self-harmed a lot from when I was, when was I? Sort of probably actually later, maybe sort of 16 or so until sort of 30 or so. So it was quite for a long, long time. And it was the one thing that gave me immediate relief. So no matter how bad things are feeling, and sort of do the cut, see the blood, and it wasn't ever serious, but see the blood, okay. And then that was it. I was on to the next thing again. It's extraordinary, whereas I found alcohol, cigarettes, everything else sort of took too long. But it's just trying to find something that has that almost immediacy. Because if you're going to meditate, it's very hard. Right, I'm going to sit down 15 minutes and meditate, because you're not in that mind space anyway. But yeah, for me, getting outside now is a huge thing. That's the really big winner for me.
That's where I feel like we all have to get rid of these stigmas, because these behaviors work. They really help with the human experience. And it is a human experience to have a default mode network that is, that goes strong and then is cycling these awful thoughts. Like, that is just what it is to be human. And we've spent so much time going, that person's weak, that person's this, let's give them a disorder. And it's like, no, we found something effective. And that is the most natural thing in the world. So I don't know. It's time for us to stop with the stigmas and start recognizing the humanity in all of us and the humanity in our behaviors, Yeah.
Because there's a big difference between major depression and suicidal ideation things and some of the other things, because if you do smoke, drink, drugs, whatever, self-harm, that's almost an immediate fix. It's not something you're looking for to be a fix forever. So I do think there is quite a difference between, self-harm, sort of suicide. Occasionally,
Well, you know,
too far,
what's
but
interesting is they're different, but they're also parts of the same thing. So suicidality is it's an extreme of what I call a fitting in DMN thought. So the DMN cares about fitting in, it cares about failing, it doesn't want you to fail, and it really worries, it frets. And so those are like three big categories to keep in mind. And so if the DMN gets enough data points from the world that like I'm not fitting in, I'm not part of what this clan is, then it will say, all right, then you don't belong here anymore. You can hear it even in the thought. It's the world would be better off without you, aka the clan would be better off without you. So suicide ideation is actually just an extreme DMN thought. And so often folks who have had suicidal ideation then feel so damaged and that there's something wrong with them and that they're weak and this and that. And I would love the conversation to start to shift to, well, what were the data points you were getting in your environment that made you feel that way? Like, how did you feel different? How did you feel misunderstood or dismissed? Like, what are the things that made you feel like you shouldn't be here? And that will get us further than you beating up on yourself. You beating up on yourself is just the DMN running with that little piece of information. And let's shut it up and do some healing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The DMN is it's a sneaky little rascal, really. Because when you have, and I can talk about having had those thoughts and situations, and it gets to a point where it just seems the most rational solution, the correct thing to do is the suicide. Because, like I say, you're not adding a value to anybody else's. Nobody's going to miss you. You're more of a hindrance than a help. All of those things. It's not. It almost doesn't feel. It didn't feel very emotional. It feels totally rational, and it is that DMN that's making those very, very rational thoughts. So it's yeah.
And when we think it's us, when we think that we want to kill ourselves, I think that is where it's like, it is such a little shit, because like that is how also backwards it is, that it would go so far as to kill its host. It's like a cancer, it's like some bad disease.
I know, absolutely.
Like, yeah. And so to start to see it and recognize it, you're like, oh, I've given it so much ammunition and I've given it so much respect almost, because I thought it was me. And this thing is it's awful. It's a nasty little thing. So yeah, it's great to separate from it.
Definitely. The one thing I thought when I sort of read some of your work and looked at some of your papers and things is that the DMN generates automatic thoughts, and does it get fed, or does it create our inherent biases? And if I think of an example, so generally many people have a negativity bias. I think there's something like there's 9 out of 10 negative stories out there in the media for there is one positive story. So we tend to believe things are worse than they are sometimes. Do they link together? Is the biases have an influence on it, or vice versa?
100%. So the DMN is very highly connected to your stress system. And so just like you're looking for a saber-toothed tiger, your DMN is doing the same scanning for threats. And so in the process of looking for threats, it's perceiving everything as negative. Like, oh, could that be bad? Or is this bad? Or what you just did was bad. Oh, you went to a party and you said something stupid. Let's think about that for the next 2 weeks so that, we try to pretend that this won't happen again. I mean, like it lives in that negativity place to survive. So it's a survival system. That is where the more we can take control of our thinking and focus on the CEN has a lot of connections to the heart. So it is not a stress system. If anything, it is used to tamp a stress response down. So sometimes the amygdala will say to the CEN, like, hey, are we good? Is this scary? How do we feel? And the CEN will be like, no, you're fine. It was just a fire alarm. You're good. And then you will stay calm. But the DMN feeds the stress system. So this is 100% where our biases come in. All of our limiting beliefs, anything that we feel that we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we should have more of this. I mean, like any way that we put ourselves down is this network. thinking it's helping. It's like an overprotective parent that's just really bad at, figuring out how to help us. It's not great.
It's almost like the DMN invented social media, because social media feeds into that. Well, two things, I guess. One is that I guess the DMN steers us towards having a confirmation bias and wanting to be with people that have similar thoughts to us, and we don't want to be challenged. Hence, we have the echo chambers of nationalism or whatever. And then a second thing is with social media coming towards us, it's either two messages: either everybody else's life is better than yours, so do something about it, or things are so terrible, you should hunker down and sort of stay in your little house and never go out. So, yeah, almost. It feels like that's almost social media is almost an injection straight into the DMN. It's, hey, just feed me all this stuff. Because I've got 2 teenage children, and it's very hard because there's so much. We've never had more information than we have today, which is very distinct from knowledge and very distinct from application. And even though we have all this information and we have the ability to, you're in Connecticut, I'm in London, we can talk very easily and talk with anybody in the world, but it almost feels like we've somehow never been less connected, even with all this. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. There's so many things on this. So you're absolutely right. It's a candy store for the DMN, and they see the brain changes. So it's 100% activates the DMN. It shuts down your CEN. The only time your CEN is on with social media is when you're messaging someone directly. So when you're focused on a direct connection, then they're like, yay, social media. But otherwise, if you're scrolling, that is 100% DMN. And it's seeing clan norms, it's seeing all of these things, and you're feeling awful. And they call it Facebook depression because it beefs up the DMN. Now, the hard part with social media is that we were never meant to operate without that feedback that we get from in-person conversations. So if I said something to you that was very, very offensive, you would look at me with shock and you'd be like, I can't believe you just said that. And I would register, oh, okay, that was a bad thing to do. Shouldn't do that again. I want to make sure I'm okay in my clan. And so you constantly get feedback in the world that your DMN uses to try to help your behavior. But on the online space, there is no feedback that way. You don't see facial expressions. You don't see how things hurt other people. And so people get really mean. And because there's nothing stopping it. And to me, it almost just shows how mean the DMN is that it will say those things. Like that social media shows it for what it is. And you're like, okay, this is why I shouldn't be listening to mine, because look at how nasty everyone's is. And like whenever I see really bad comments on something, I think, ooh, their DMN's probably ripping them apart. And so like, this is not about me. These comments, even though of course they hurt, we're all human. This is about them, and they're really in that place. And like, I hope they can move out of that at some point.
One of the things I did before we talked was read your PhD thesis. Not to check it was good or not, because it was excellent. But there were a couple of things in it that I thought were really, really interesting. And one of which was that the findings suggested that individuals, so we all have the capacity and knowledge to recognize dynamic relationships between variables. So we have the capacity to do that, and we only need to be shown how to do it. And that was really meaningful, and I wondered how you felt when you validated that finding, and how that contradicted with lots of other things you'd heard before.
Yeah, so funny enough, my dissertation happened from a place of irritation. So I was reading in all this business literature and psychology literature that we can't understand how how different things interact with each other over time. We need models, and we need to be able to, have them do it for us. And I thought, bullshit. Like I talk with people, and people figure out the dynamics of stuff very quickly. And I was like, we're just not giving humans enough credit for what they can do. And so it was more, the whole process was more just to try to get what's in people's heads out onto paper. And so what I used was, what are the things that make a Duke student successful in their first year? What helps them become part of this Duke community? And they create these wonderful maps, and they'd show everything on, like, this variable makes this one go up and this variable makes this one go down. Like, the more friends you have, the more connected you feel. Like, if you spend all your time alone, you're going to feel less. And we then took all that and brought it to the administration, and they were like, no, this is really helpful, that this is how kids are thinking about it. These are the things that matter to them. Some things they thought mattered a lot, and it was so long ago I don't even remember. But some things they thought that mattered a ton didn't matter at all. And they're like, all right, we should stop funding that stuff. And then other things that were critically important was new to them. And they're like, we can put more supports and things in place to foster this for kids. So it was interesting. And I loved that it was ultimately helpful, that it wasn't just a navel grazing academic exercise, that actually something good came from it. That made me really happy.
Yeah, 'cause my daughter's going to university this fall, hopefully. And she's going to do psychology and philosophy. So, and it's first time, like for everybody else, I guess she leaves home and she could be sort of a couple of hours away, living in accommodation and stuff. And yeah, anything that helps understand what makes that first term, first semester, first year adaptable, successful, enjoyable, not necessarily from the academic side of things, but from the life side of things, it would be really, really valuable. Because I think universities, colleges really, really obviously do want students to stay and to commit and all those sort of things. But sometimes it feels that they have a very much a scattergun approach. They sort of throw everything at the wall and see if anything sticks, rather than thinking about, these are the 5 things that are really, really important. The biggest thing we can do is A, and then the 27th biggest thing we can do is, should we sort of cut off the tail at sort of 10? And it's that sort of diminishing returns, isn't it? That you do these things which are so important. If you don't do those, no matter what else, if you don't do 1, 2, and 3, no matter how else you do things, it doesn't help. But I think, being able to understand at that time in your life, when people are typically 18, 19, it's a huge shift. And what is it that we can help them do? Because I know people that have gone there for a term, have sort of decided it's not for them. And you think it's not because they're not incredibly intelligent, it's not because they're not bright, it's not all those things. It's just something about the situation that they find very difficult to understand. So it's a really, really valuable topic to engage with, for sure.
Yeah, one thing that's really helpful for kids, and just like any of us, is finding their clan. So the DMN needs its clan. It needs its people. It's what makes us feel safe and secure in the world. And so whether it is with the other people that are in the freshman dorm, some people connect that way. Some people connect through, let's say they play music, and so they're in the music wing together. Some people, we're all psychology majors. But finding those groups of people that you can feel is your little home away from home, if you will, because university can feel super overwhelming with how many people are there and how much is going on. And that can feel really scary to a DMN. Like, I have to fit into every single one of these, and I have to be, I have to look like that person because that person's cool. And like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. And like the DMN, and what's interesting for young people too, is the DMN matures earlier than the CEN matures. So the CEN finishes growing and developing in our late 20s, mid-late 20s. And honestly, there's some research coming out now that it can even go into 30, 31. Whereas the DMN is kind of locked in your teenage years, like 15, 16 years old. So so our DMNs are really strong and wanting us to be in clans, wanting us to fit in, wanting us not to fail, telling us that all the time, which is part of why I think we all don't like high school, because this thing is so front and center in high school. And so it's helping kids understand that, and then helping them see you just need to find your few clans and then let the rest go. You don't need to be perfect for everyone. You don't need to fit in everywhere. You just find those people you love, fit in with them, and then release the rest.
One of the students that's my daughter went to another round of sort of talks last weekend, and one of the distance students said the best thing she took with her was a doorstop. So when she was in her room, she sort of pinned the door open so people walking past could pop in and say hi. Otherwise, she said that door was such a barrier between me and everybody else. And when I didn't want the doorstop, I just closed the door. But having people that were walking past and occasionally pop in and say hi just really helped her to
That
come
is
out a little
so
bit.
cool. That is such a easy, like
Mm.
tactical intervention to build community. I mean,
Yeah.
great advice. Love that.
Mm. So how do you help quiet that sort of, I guess, unkind mind then, and foster self-compassion? Because some of the things you said earlier on about the different situations you were in and feeling that you hadn't necessarily got that sort of golden orb, so therefore hadn't been successful. How do you foster self-compassion, love for yourself?
Yeah. So to tactically stop the DMN, because that's a really huge one.
Mm.
First of all, is to recognize when it's going off. So you're like, okay, there it is. And then what you can do in that moment, you can either analyze it if you love analyzing things. So you can think, all right, okay, what was it talking about? What are its pressure points? It's kind of that inquisitive mind towards what this thing is. So is it worried about fitting in? Is it thinking I'm failing? Is it fretting? Like what is it doing? And that process of analyzing will kick you to your CEN. Also, how would this have helped in the hunter-gatherer years? Like when you get like what its wavelength is and then you start to play with that, that can help. For other people, they want to get out of it. So you can either get into your body and focus on how does my body feel in this chair? How is my heart beating? What is my breathing like? That can shift your attention so you're focusing on your body. Or you can focus externally, like what does the sky look like right now? What color is it? Like what am I smelling? Like any of those things. And you know you've gotten with there when the thoughts stop. Like when you get silence, you're like, great, I'm focusing enough. And sometimes it takes a little while to get used to this practice of focusing. For
Mm.
some people, focusing is really hard. And so there are also other times if you're tired, if you're stressed, if you're emotional, where the DMN won't shut up. Like your CEN will get shut down when you're in one of those more kind of survival states. The brain is like, don't need this. Just like reproduction, just like digestion. You know how we learned always long again with the fight and fright response
Yeah.
that, it shuts down digestion, shuts down reproduction. Yeah, it also shuts down your higher order thinking. So you won't be able to access it. So in those times, try ignoring. And ignoring, we actually do it all the time. We're very accustomed to it. If you live in a city, you're used to ignoring the sounds around you. If there's a television on in the other room, we're really good at ignoring it. So when I am exhausted or worried and it's just going and I can't stop it, I call it the Real Housewives of Me. And I pretend that it's this like annoying television show in my head. And it's,
Mm.
it's enough of separation that I don't believe those thoughts. I hear them, they're there, but I'm not going to take them seriously. I'm not going to think about them afterwards and wonder what's wrong with me that I think such dark things. I'm just going to let them go.
Yeah.
And that can help.
The ability to be able to blot things out or tune things out is really fascinating. I mean, I remember we did an experiment at schools 100 years ago, and people won't know what this is, but we had a tape recorder, which I guess is like the voice notes on your iPhone or whatever, and we just recorded for sort of a minute without not recording anything, and then played it back, and it was amazing the sounds that you could hear on the recording that we just tuned out. The train, the bus, the road, the birds, whatever. We're just so able to filter them out because we don't need them at the time. But actually, when you're listening to it on recording, it was so different. It was like that. No,
That
that
is
can't be here. That
such
can't be
a
here.
cool study.
Really
That's
interesting.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was
And
really
that's
fascinating
where
when we did it, and that was as kids. We thought, no, this must be something they've pre-prepared, but it wasn't. It was literally, gosh, all these sounds that I didn't know they were there.
And that's the one link that we do know with autism, though it hasn't gone too far, is that their ability to focus out and ignore the rest of the stimuli
Yeah.
is less strong than ours are. And so all the stimuli can come in at the same level of priority. And so it is way too much stimuli.
Yeah.
And so that's where there can be sensitivity to light, sensitivity to sound. It's because they're just getting so much more inputs than we are. So that's to get back to your question on the autism piece. That is one piece of information we do know. And so how that relates to the DMN and the CEN is a great question. More to come.
Why do you think then? So I understand the sort of purpose of the DMN centuries past when we had to be able to respond very quickly and we had to react very quickly, and we almost didn't have time to employ the sort of executive function and start thinking about something. It had to be a response. Why haven't we evolved so that's become smaller and smaller as it's less and less important to our world, or does it just not happen that quickly?
I honestly think it's that great fallacy that it feels like it's us. It is so good at making those thoughts feel like they are coming from our soul or who we are, that we have owned these thoughts forever. And and it's only now understanding this that we can start to separate it and see it for what it is. Otherwise we would see it as our own mental health issues. Oh, this is my self-esteem. This is that. No. And so to me, that's this wonderful precipice we're now on with psychology to say, oh, so that's what this is. And now we can start to dismiss it when it's appropriate to dismiss it. Now, to Empathy Unbound, this is the seat of our empathy as well, the default mode network, because it was all of that clan-based behavior. So empathy kind of was the root of reciprocal altruism, which is essentially, you're hurt, I'll help you. That means when I'm hurt, you'll help me, and we're all in this together. We're all a clan, and we're going to all succeed because we've got each other's back. And so it comes from that same evolutionary perspective, and yet we exalt empathy like it's this amazing thing when it's still part of this same network. So it's interesting because it's part of what makes humans so beautiful, that we can connect with each other, we can understand what each other is thinking, we can understand what each other is feeling, but at the same time it can make us feel really sad and make us feel really insecure as well. Nothing's ever perfect, nothing's ever, everything has a good and a bad side to it.
I'm not sure if I've got a question or it's just something I'm going to say now, but I sort of look back when you were saying that. I think about all the different amazing, extraordinary societies we've had throughout history, whether it be the Incas or the Romans or the Greeks or just the Egyptians, kingdoms that have ruled, rightly or wrongly, half of the world, 20% of the world, 30% of the world, and every kingdom comes to an end at some point. And you think part of that must be to do with how we understand or don't understand one another and the level of empathy we show to one another, and almost that feeling that, is it Genghis Khan? So it's not enough that I succeed, everybody else must fail. It's almost that,
Yes.
it's that sensation that it's not enough that we all get better and better and better. We can get better, but then we must protect ourselves from others that are trying to get better as well. And like I said, I'm not sure there was a question in there, but it just struck me about the way sort of societies have evolved these extraordinary things with wealth and beauty and art and literature and music, and then suddenly they're down again. The next society takes over. It just feels sort of connected somehow.
I totally agree, because it's that whole in-group, out-group perspective. Who's in my clan, who's not in my clan, and there's a new book you might love called Tribal by Michael Morris that came out recently about all of these kind of instinctual things we've got. And one of the interesting things he talks about is that we're less wanting that society to go down than we're so focused on our clan and wanting our clan to be the best and to have the most land and to be as grand as it possibly could be. And it's in the process of doing that we can very much hurt people in the outgroups, and yet we don't even see it because we're so focused on our in-groups. And it's part of this instinctual clan focus that we have of taking care of ourselves, being the best that we can be. And bizarrely, this is a really interesting phase we're in because we now have more awareness of everyone else than we ever have. And everything is so right there for us that we are feeling empathy, and we're feeling in groups with people all the way across the world. And so I feel like we're evolving, we're getting there. We're starting to make a whole human race clan, if you will. I mean, it's baby steps, and there's still a lot of war going on. And you can look at that war and see how, that's them trying to make their clan better. This is fear-based. This is stuck in our DMNs. This is not really thinking from a CEN perspective of what's best for us and what's best for them.
Yeah.
It's stuck in the DMN.
And on a much sort of smaller scale, you have that, I'm not sure what the right word, sort of comparison culture where it's not really a clan. You want to be part of the 2-car family clan, or you want to be part of the we go skiing and go to the Bahamas every year clan. And but if your neighbor had only ever went to the local beach and that's all they ever did, but somebody suddenly goes off to the Bahamas or travels Europe, whatever, oh my goodness, I've got to get into that sort of clan. It's not, nobody would ever have a name for that clan, but it is that DMV sort of saying, look, hey, you need to step up your game. You need to be in this, or 2 holidays a year clan. You need to be in this. It's kind of weird that we almost create clans where they don't even exist because we're so desperate to belong to something that isn't even real. It's a very fascinating topic.
I talked to someone who said, well, I don't do that anymore. Like, I've gotten so burned in life that I pretty much talk to my mom and I have my dog and I have like one other friend. And they're like, so like, this doesn't really apply to me because I don't do that. And I was like, oh, 100%. You have created a clan. You
Absolutely.
have just done a beautiful job making it a very small clan. Yeah. So you're not constantly trying to fit into all of these other clans. So it is interesting what we choose to focus on. There's that whole study on who are the happiest people, and the happiest people tend to be like wherever your social strata is. If you have less income than all the people you're living around, you will feel less than. And so this could be among all the millionaires, but the least millionaire is going to be more unhappy than the person in the middle class, neighborhood, which has a higher income relative to everyone else. We do so much comparing that hurts us and gets us nowhere. And stopping that, it can be very healing and helpful.
Yeah, it's so funny when you sort of say, how much money is enough? And it's almost the answer is, well, as long as I've got more than people that I hang around with. And I listened to a podcast the other day and he was saying this guy's got friends that are very wealthy and this guy's got a net worth of 3 billion or whatever. And he said, but when he hangs out with people that have got 20, 30, 40 billion, he feels like he's lagging behind. What can you not buy with 3 billion? But it's the same if you've got $10,000 in the bank and your neighbour's got 11,000 or your neighbour's got 9,000, you feel very, very different about it. Even if nothing's changed for you, it's still the same 10,000. It's just the fact that other people have more or have less than you.
And to us normal people, that sounds so annoying. I don't think there's anything more annoying than a wealthy person complaining. Like, it drives me nuts. But then I can have some compassion thinking, well, it's their DMN and their DMN's doing the comparing. Everyone's got one. We're all stuck with this thing. And so even if you have this seemingly perfect life on the outside, it's telling you nasty stuff too. And so then I can get some more empathy and some more compassion for the person. But because on the outside, you just want to, I don't know, it's very annoying when you hear that.
Yes, definitely. Just back to your book for a second. So what are the main chapters, themes? What is the book going to bring to people?
Oh, great question. So first one is going into just this science of what the DMN is. Then we go into what is your DMN's profile? What does yours sound like so that you get really acquainted with all of the junk it's going to talk to you about. That's empowering. Then it's going to go into, these are all the ways to turn them off. And just like our conversation, it's going to be completely customized to you and what you love doing, what draws your focus out, etc. So there's a lot of self-reflection one can do in this book. Then it switches because when I found out that there are times when I can't turn my DMN off, even though now I know all this, I thought, oh crap, you can't give people this shiny thing and say, oh, you're going to be, meditating 24 hours a day now. No, that's not reality. So then it's what to do when things go wrong. So when you are tired, when you are stressed, when you are emotional, why your DMN won't shut up and how to really help yourself and take care of yourself in those moments. And then the last part is, okay, so if we're not this voice, who are we? Because we've listened to this thing forever. on autopilot, and we have perceived this to be our self. And so then there's a process of rebuilding who the self is when this voice isn't the one in charge. And so that's the fun stuff. That's when we get into more of the heart space. What do you love? Like what interests you the most? And then going after those pieces. And it's not about like blowing up your entire life and moving across the country. It's really about bringing more of your authentic self into your world, which we are all way more able to do when we stop seeing the DMN as who we are. We can be way more honest with what we love and who we are when it's not leading the way.
Yeah. It sounds fascinating. It sounds like there has to be at least another 2 or 3 books to follow up. I'm not saying start writing again, but there has to be. It must have been hard deciding what to leave out. But one of the things you said there was so true. I think a lot of us very naturally think that we're going to feel better or solve the situation by moving across the country, by buying a bigger car, by having the better meal, whatever. And it does tend to be a truism that actually changing externalities isn't the solution. Trying to change yourself, which is much harder because you can't just go and buy it off the shelf. But if you sort of read the book and listen to the words that are said, I think actually being able to change, or like step one is recognizing the situation. So until you recognize something, you can't do anything about it. But once you recognize it and learn how to adapt and change, this far more fundamental change comes from changing yourself as opposed to hoping the situation around you will allow you to change. Does that make sense?
Totally. I mean, I love the whole John Kabat-Zinn thing of wherever you go, there you are. I mean,
Yes.
it's
You can't run
truly
away from
wherever
yourself,
you,
can you? Yeah.
yeah, wherever you go, your DMN goes too. You know, that's kind of the next step of it. So like I've seen people who used to care very much about their appearance, wearing the right labels, doing all that, suddenly switch to wanting to wear incredibly comfortable clothes, wearing more like crystal jewelry rather than diamond jewelry. I mean, it's really fun watching people stop doing the things that they were doing to keep up with the Joneses or to fit in with, you know, the mom group or the work group, and start to truly like just live as themselves. And it's so fun watching their individual personalities come out when we let go of everything society and our families and our culture has told us that we should be to be successful.
So have you got better and better at following your own advice?
Yeah. So what I've noticed on this whole journey is that my DMN is still there, and it gets very nasty if I am stressed or tired or emotional or hormonal, let's say. But for the most of the time, it's gotten really dull. It's like, oh, you really want a brownie? Oh, you're hungry right now. I mean, it starts to get to be a very innocuous voice because I've spent enough time saying, that's ridiculous, shut up, or I don't believe that, shut up. And so it's actually not feeding me that stuff anymore. And so I feel like generally I've been a lot happier. The other thing is if I get really tired and it goes off, I don't then spend the next week processing, oh my gosh, how did it get so bad? Why did I get so, oh, do I need to go back to therapy? Blah, 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 blah. I don't make meaning out of those experiences anymore. I just like wake up the next day and think, oh, thank God I got a good night's sleep. Like suddenly I feel so much better. And I let that one go. And so I find my mental health is way more like steady, and it's not as punctured by moments that are hard, or like if someone says something mean, it doesn't sit with me. I don't replay it for a month. Like it doesn't sit as much, and like that has been beautiful. So has anything in my life changed? No. I like still go to the dog park. I'm still going, you know, it's all the normal stuff, but I'm just way happier. I'm way more settled doing it. I'm not as insecure about who I am and what I'm bringing to the table. I don't care as much.
So do you know what your life looks like for the future? The next sort of 5-10 years brings?
I know nothing.
Really?
And that's wild. Yeah. And because I don't want to go after any more shiny objects. Okay. So I can see taking on more clients as my son gets older and doing more therapy. I think that could be really meaningful. I'm very curious about what the DMN sounds like in the male mind and what all those male structures are around hierarchy, and you can't be kind, you have to be strong. I think it would be
Yeah.
very interesting to go into the male DMN and what that's created for society. So I don't know where any of this is going, and I'm going to live that way because living the other way didn't work well for me.
Do you think we come into life with part of our DNM pre-programmed? And I'm sort of thinking, because I've been reading a lot about generational trauma and what are things that sort of passed on to us through our different generations, whatever. So do you think, it comes with some things built in, or is it literally from the day we're born, it starts to sort of fill with things?
So it's actually not really connected as a network. So it's several different brain areas, and they're not connected until like middle childhood. It starts forming its connections, and then it starts to be solid more in the teenage years, which makes a lot of sense. The how what's the word I'm looking for? Uninhibited children are, and how
Yes.
authentic they are, and they don't.
Yeah.
And I love hanging out with kids for that, because they don't care about social judgment. It's because this network isn't online yet, but the brain areas are picking up all the data from from everyone's environments on what are the clan norms, how am I supposed to look, act, what am I supposed to do, and so it learns based on whatever environment it's in. So and it's always going to be negative. That's the other thing. It's never like, well, way to go, you did it, or like, wow, you're really on the top compared to these other people. It never says that. It's always looking up at something better. And so no matter what your environment is, the DMN will come up with stuff to worry you about, stress you out about, make you feel like you're not good enough. I mean, it's all of us. It's kind of the human condition.
I'm not sure if you've seen the film Inside Out. It has little characters in it. You can always imagine DMN sort of rolling its sleeves up, saying, "Right, I'll try that again." Then it feels kind of weird. But what's two things then? So one, you said about children being uninhibited. Now I can still remember, mine are 15, 18 now, but going to a park when our children were 4 and 5, and they come over with a friend. "Hi, this is Alfie. Can you come back to our house for tea?" Well, is he from school? No, we just met him. This literally, they run over and assume you're going to be friends. And I think there's that side of it, which is wonderful. Then I think the second side, so my mum died a couple of years ago, and she had dementia. But one of the things that I think dementia gave her was that not that uninhibitedness came back, but the understanding of social cues became a thing. So she would think nothing of reaching over to somebody's plate and just grabbing their food and eating it. So she would think nothing of, being more demanding or whatever. So almost that the social cues and things that you do to fit into the clan, that had sort of gone in a way. And she was becoming more and more removed from societal norm or the clan, if that makes sense.
100%. My grandmother also had dementia, and she was someone who very much cared about her appearance. That was a very big deal, I think, in that generation generally. I mean, they all wore their lipsticks out to do anything to get the mail. And it was so interesting that as dementia took over, all she wanted to eat were brownie sundaes, and she gained weight. And it was like, wow, those things that you did to hold yourself in and make yourself, what you thought the world needed fall away. And you're like, so actually underneath it all, you really love chocolate and vanilla ice cream. Me too. I'm with you, Bird. And I'm right with you. It's amazing to watch it.
I'm not sure whether to think you're incredibly fortunate to have landed on an area where you're never going to want to stop researching, or to feel, I bet you wish you could, well, there's the answer next. Because you got this thing, and there's so, like I say, think about the male dimension, and whether, women are supposed to be more empathetic, more nourishing, and men are supposed to be. And is that something that we're pre-programmed to do? And is that part of society, or is it part of our genetic makeup or whatever? So it does feel that there's, you've got a never-ending supply of research topics to have a go at.
Where it hits my heart is if anyone could separate from the DMN at all, and all of the ways we beat ourselves up, if I can get anyone to to not feel that it's them feeling that way, that it's this thing that's telling them this, then it was worth all the effort, because we can be our own worst enemy in like the worst way, and I have been there. And so if anyone could walk around a little lighter from us talking about this, I'm like, that was worth it. This is great. Let's go. Let's keep going. We all need this healing.
We do. That feels like a perfect place to end. Thank you so much for your time. You've been really generous, and you've made a topic that is, I know, very, very complex, very understandable, and super interesting.
Love it. Love being here. Thank you, Andrew.